Morning, David.
Morning, Tony. What's happening? What are
All
you
good,
doing?
man. Yeah, winter in Cape Town, so lots of rain and it's quite chilly, but all good, man.
Good, good, good. I've been very sick this week, so I think this is going to be the angry episode. And also because the content to cover, none of it, very little of it is good news. It's all people being stupid, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, where do you want to
Yeah,
start? Again, 3 weeks since we last recorded, so a bit to look at.
too long. Yeah, I think, do you want to start with the CrowdStrike outage, or seems like that's top of mind for you?
Yeah, sure. That was to us. It was actually probably less of an issue. It was a little bit of a distraction for about 3 hours where we spun up an incident team and did all the things we needed to do. But we were unaffected due to two reasons. One, we don't use CrowdStrike. We use another solution, which I will refrain from mentioning. And then secondly is that because it was at its heart a CrowdStrike issue, I think what Microsoft had done is they had, in an abundance of caution or due to a real threat, they had some of the older legacy authentication solutions seem to have been disabled. So even if you didn't use CrowdStrike, you may still have an issue with something else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's certainly what it looked like from our point of view, and we had very, very little of that. So I mean, there was a handful of applications non-critical, and that was fine. A couple of our big suppliers were impacted, but I mean, we did a quick piece of work, and we'd still have to be down by Sunday night for that to then the pain to come onto us, which obviously didn't happen. Everyone got back yesterday, so I think we were quite lucky. But this is by no means the generally lived experience from us. I mean, by all accounts, seems to be the single biggest outage globally in the history of computers, I would say.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because the environment was set up this way in the 80s when we had mainframe and client server environments. And the environment has only really been set up cloud centric in the last, call it 10 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
So, outages on this scale haven't really been possible for a good 40 years, 30 years. So, it does, it probably, for me, I've probably got a lot of empathy for CrowdStrike. I think that they walk a very fine tightrope around pushing updates out, which prevent security issues, and testing them thoroughly. And you and I have both released software, and I've certainly never released software which was 100%. There's always something that goes out, and you kind of fix it as you find it.
Yeah, I would say your empathy is good-natured but misplaced because, I mean, I know that's probably not fair. I think what you're saying is the size of the task is really, really challenging. I think there's a few things. Just because was this all on the enterprise side that this went down? Because obviously CrowdStrike do kind of big enterprise solutions, but then they also do individual. So this must be an enterprise, which would be nothing's truly cloud, and certainly with legacy. So I'm sure it was a function of cloud-based and also local machines as well, right? Because I heard stories of people going around machine to machine. F3 blue screen, F3 go and delete the wrong thing, etc. So
Yeah.
anyway, like the distribution, you can imagine with the the way that you can distribute a patch these days, whether it's cloud or machine based, you can impact everybody. But I think the problem is it just had too big an impact. You can't take down hospitals and airlines and public transport and payment systems and whatever else, because there was a problem in it. Like whatever the challenge is, do better. There's got to be. Or else you just don't have the right player in that space. I think will be ultimately. If this happened again, I mean, already there's two or three observations I have. Number one, the CEO should start preparing for a Senate hearing, like today. I think would be a good idea. Two, more importantly, needs to figure out, like, as I saw some very weak stuff around, the balance between testing and speed, and we're incentivized on speed to respond. And okay, well, I mean, we all have challenges, like somehow internally there's some failing. And then I think the third would be he better get after his big customers very, very quickly, because almost certainly people will be looking at the market now, because I don't know, very, very nerve-wracking. And then you think about the response, which I guess was okay, probably limited to a day. Does like Microsoft Defender become more attractive because you're end-to-end Microsoft then on a lot of stuff, and you got, I don't know, bigger company, bigger resource? I don't know, a lot to unpack there. Sorry, I told you it'd be the angry.
No, there's a lot. No, there's a lot to unpack. So, I think, so at its core, Microsoft's biggest strength is its biggest weakness. And, Microsoft's biggest strength is that it's a highly compatible operating system. And with that compatibility comes drivers and vulnerability and a whole bunch of security issues. And, everybody's quick to compare, a Mac to a Windows computer, but, they're fundamentally different. They're fundamentally different tools. So, I don't personally think it's a fair comparison. And, if this was an easy fix, Microsoft would have fixed it years ago. The truth is that you've got two competing priorities. You've got compatibility and ease of use and security. And these are the two competing priorities that companies like Microsoft and third parties like CrowdStrike and the whole security ecosystem have built businesses around.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the fact that it's a difficult environment to act in means that they trade at a PE of 500, and they've got this massive valuation, and they're getting market share, and the average client subscribes to 5 of their products and whatever else. So there's no gimme here. I think the size of the challenge is real and whatever else. But I think Microsoft also they're not blameless in this, because how in this day and age can you have a kernel so affected by a third party, like you've seeded too much in that case, which is, I guess, an extension of what you're saying. That a third party can take down, because the problem with that is that you get tarred by the same brush, if you will. And I mean, for the first probably 4 hours, it was all being positioned as a Microsoft issue, right?
Yeah, and this is at the heart of it, because Apple own the metal. They don't need to give anybody access to the kernel or to the core operating system. But, Microsoft doesn't own the metal, or doesn't own the silicon, doesn't own the hardware. So, they almost by default forced, because they need the Dells and they need the HPs and they need the Lenovo's to build hardware for their operating system. So they are forced to expose far deeper levels of their operating system than Apple would. Which
is at its worst at the desktop and laptop, and probably at its best in Azure, where they have an environment with more control, right?
Yeah, and this is where, so I think the other observation I have is, as much as these companies, and you're 100% right, have trade at very high valuations, and the reason these companies have a business is because you and I don't necessarily want to employ PhDs in security and people, teams of people who look at security at bits and bytes level at every layer of our environment. So we in the absence of building teams, massive teams at extraordinary cost, and managing these teams, we rely on companies like Cloudflare or CrowdStrike, and the other observation is these are not mature businesses. None of these businesses
No,
were around 10 years ago. So,
no,
I looked at the CEO, and I felt like he handled the situation as good, as well as he could. He took
sure.
ownership. He provided a solution, but he's not he's not a veteran in the industry. This is the first time he's dealing with this stuff,
Yeah.
so there's no playbook for it.
Yeah, for sure. And it'll be pretty relentless now because, I mean, it would seem as if most of it has been addressed. There'll be some kind of catch up that will be played in some industries depending on their setup. But on the whole, I think the crisis has passed, but it will be relentless now. Relentless. His shareholders will be all over him. His the big funds that are invested will, you can imagine, Satya will be, the pressure that will come to bear on him will be unbelievable. I think I had mentioned this before, but I had dinner with a while back, a few months ago back, with one of the Microsoft MDs, UK MDs, and he was saying he had received an email from Satya saying, security is my number one concern and response, a concern and priority. And when he says it's his, then it's yours too, right? And he was saying that's what gives us the right to play here, because obviously he had been looking at it and they have all this potential and tremendous upside from AI, but all of that can go away if you get the security part wrong, right? Like that's the foundation of all this. So I think, so that's some context, and you've seen it more and more, and they've been, throwing events for, CEOs to focus on security and whatever, which I'm not sure how good the attendance is. But so that's all the context of this is happening. So then when there's a global outage and for the first 4 hours, everyone thinks it's Microsoft. And then after that, well, it still was Microsoft that was down, even if it wasn't their explicit primary fault. This is going to rattle some cages.
Oh, no,
There's no doubt.
absolutely. No, it's
to put it mildly, to state the obvious.
Absolutely, and I don't think you've been dramatic by saying there will be Senate hearings. I think there absolutely should be Senate hearings, and I think good things, putting people in the hot seat, good things come from them. We look at Basel, we look at a bunch of things that happened in the financial services sector.
Yeah. I'm always a little skeptical around government's ability to understand these things. I mean, I think they can. Well, we'll see.
Well, I think David, where the US are very good is, if you look at SBFs and Bankman-Fried, people go to jail. They regulate an industry, they hold officers accountable, and people actually go to jail.
So I have a question. How many people went to jail for the 2008 subprime mortgage fiasco?
Yeah, and that's
you know how many? I know the number.
No.
Do you know?
No.
One person, and it was definitely a more junior role, and it was for like a very obscure thing. There was no reckoning and accounting and accountability that came in. And there was a catastrophic breakdown that went beyond just a system failure. There was clearly bad debt that was being classified as good debt. There was pressure being applied from different people inappropriately. Like this, I mean, it wasn't just hey, we tried it and it didn't work out. I mean, I think there was real, at best there was negligence and the worst criminality, and no one went there. So I get that it can happen, but it's okay. It's perhaps not universal.
No, and I think your skepticism is well placed, but I think that what we need to recognize at the same time is when these events occur, it takes time for legislation to be put in place to prevent them happening again.
Yeah, sure. I think at the same time the biggest mover in the market is invisible hand, right? Because Microsoft will be talking to him, his customers will be threatening to leave, his shareholders, his big investors will be telling him they will cut that they're going to do whatever they're going to do. And I suspect that may have anyway, it's not one or the other, it's probably a combination. So I can get that. And I'm not zero regulation, because that's obviously doesn't work either. But I think about, and slightly different. You know, when the social media CEOs went before Congress or the Senate, whatever hearing it was, and the questions that were being asked, I mean, Mark could just, he could be so loose with the truth and get away with it, would you be able to know, would you be able to know if I had gone onto your website and purchased something, whatever? And he goes, theoretically, maybe, like he was just let off the hook. And these guys, like, they didn't understand it, right?
No, they don't. Yeah, he's playing a game of chess and they're playing marbles. There's no doubt about it. They are so ill placed to ask him hard questions.
Playing marbles or losing the marbles? Should we transition? Yeah. Should we transition to corn pop?
No, so one more point on this is
and then we'll get to Joe Biden.
Yeah, so you mentioned Azure, moving to Azure as a possible remedy, but when I think about cloud computing, I think about somebody else's computer. That's a simple term to a simplification of cloud computing. So I have no doubt Microsoft, one of their strategies coming out of this is going to be selling Azure PCs.
Yeah.
But the last time I was a CIO, I actually went the other route. I went bring your own device. And, my security policy was the internet starts at the network card of the server. Anything that touches my server is a threat. And bring your own device, and you're responsible for your device, and there's certain policies in place. So that's the one extreme, and it's an imperfect solution. We could go down a rabbit hole of why it's imperfect, and then the other extreme is move to the cloud and Azure-based PC. But what you then opening yourself up to is if something happens at Azure, everything stops working.
Yeah, sure. There's no, exactly. There's no kind of on-prem switchover.
There's no, your PC stopped working, your phone stopped working, your email stops working, your ERP stops working, everything just stops working.
Yeah, but the architecture and engineering matches the threat. Well, certainly that's the ambition, right? So you got multiple sites and you got failovers and dedicated circuits, and there's and that's not what happened here. Like, that still remains a theoretical, not to say that it couldn't happen. And the risk is Microsoft running at 100 miles an hour, 1,000 miles an hour to go and bake AI into all of their products. Like, we know what it takes to get products over the line and out the door. I mean, it's monumental, right? The bigger the business, I mean, they're not the SpaceX or Tesla when it comes to coding. So the fact that they did get it within a year, their first products were coming out, was extraordinary, right? And they got richly rewarded for that. But that would tweak the culture, tweak the focus, the resources, and whatever else. And I think that's what Nadella was saying around security is my number one concern is, like, we can't lose faith, we can't lose sight of the foundation. And it would be very easy too, right? Because you've got, you're putting these decrees out. I would imagine something like, I want Copilot in Teams by 8 months, 4 months, whatever it might be. And then, projects get stopped and teams get changed and metrics get stopped being measured. And it's, before you know it, you're into the situation which potentially could result in some catastrophe, which is a little bit of what happened here, but not really, right? Not really. I think there will be some wake up call, and I think Microsoft will get, will not be won't come out of this too badly. And I don't think they got too hammered in their share price today.
No, but even CrowdStrike was only down 10%. I thought they would have fallen off the cliff. So it's quite interesting. And without laboring this point, the other factor we need to consider is Google are in the process of acquiring a cloud-based security business for $29 billion, which will be their largest acquisition ever. And one of
no one's going to want it. I could just tell them, I'll save your money. No one wants it. Because are they going to resell it as a, are they using it internally? No, this is going to be a tool, a service to their customers, paid service.
Well, we know Google's strategy. You and I've interacted with Google enough over the last 2 years to know their strategies all around. Everything they do is to move enterprises onto their cloud.
Yeah,
And my view is they're flogging a dead horse.
yeah,
They,
I would
yeah.
agree. That's why I
So
say nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Like who's significant? Who has a significant amount of the enterprise solution powered by Google?
no, well, very few. They're fringe enterprises that do, but data has gravity, and the majority of enterprises on Azure, with AWS being a contender.
Telling you, yeah,
But
yeah,
more my point was around the regulatory framework around acquisitions. So,
yeah.
the challenge, so what's going to, Microsoft's going to put the regulators under pressure to say that, we would ideally like to buy companies like CrowdStrike, and bake them into Azure and bring them in, but you're not allowing us to do large scale acquisitions.
Well, maybe, but they do have Defender.
But that's an in-house product. So,
Yeah, I understand, but it competes. It competes. It's endpoint detection, monitoring, it's response. I mean, it is I'm sure the reps from the different companies will talk about their USPs, but for you go to the market and you choose, I'm either going with Sophos, or I'm going with endpoint, or I'm going with CrowdStrike, or I'm going with Defender, and maybe one or two smaller options. But that's generally probably what's looked at, I would say, certainly the European side. So I'm not sure. So I think you make the right point around that their hands are tied when they try and make acquisitions. I'm just not sure that if they didn't have one, they'd have a stronger case to be made, And I mean, I don't want to talk too much in specificity about security, but I'll talk in generality. I mean, I think there is a lot to be said for going with Defender, because we see this in ERP as well, right? The more linked, the more homogenous it is, the less the dark spots, blind spots, and you don't have integration issues. You've got a solution that knows intimately the system that it's looking at. I don't know. Time will tell on that, but I can see a big push coming on the Defender sales team. Will be putting some slide decks together this weekend.
Massively, and the R&D that's going to go into Defender, maybe a few acqui-hires. Whether the regulators will tolerate that for much longer, we'll have to see.
So the last question I have on this, and then we do need to go to all of the madness happening around that. And just I guess for interest, what is it? Saturday, the 20th of July that we're recording. So if anything turns out to be incorrect or wrong, that's the date that we were recording. The question is, why wasn't it tested? Because if this was a fringe, or if this was an edge case, and under the most rarest of occasions, if some things lined up and this hadn't been updated, then you had this instance that would be fine, and maybe one airline goes down. The fact that they all do and everybody is impacted by it just seems to think that there was a fundamental flaw in here that should have been picked up. Like, what's are the environments in which they are deploying to just too diverse to be, for testing to be meaningful? And obviously, what happened here was at it wasn't further down the line. It must have been quite at the heart of it that something got significantly wrong.
So the details still need to come out, and my understanding, and again, this is the day after, so this is the fog of war we're still in. So my understanding is it was a particular driver that was affected, and it wasn't the hardware would need that driver. That's why not all the enterprise clients were affected. So I would imagine it's going to be something along the lines of it's this HP machine that used this chip that required this driver, and if all of those things lined up, it was the blue screen of death.
So why I think there was a misadventure here and they should have tested is clearly those conditions that need to be met, whatever they were so widespread. It should have been, if you can only test 1,000 environments or 1,000 scenarios or whatever. That clearly should have been one of them because it was just so widespread, you know. Like I think the question around why this wasn't tested when clearly there was something so fundamentally wrong, I think is going to be a difficult one to answer.
Look, so my experience with the world-class software development supplier was with Domino's Pizza. And, when we deployed our point of sale, we shipped our hardware to Ann Arbor. There's a testing room inside Ann Arbor with every market with their hardware there. And before they make any changes, before any releases go out, those releases are tested in this room. And you can imagine, Domino's operates in many markets with many versions of hardware. It's tested there. Post that, we also didn't just roll things out to all our machines. We did staggered rollouts. So, it does feel like there's a playbook which CrowdStrike need to refine and adopt.
Yeah. Yeah, clearly. Yeah, clearly. I mean, imagine if this happened again. Could you imagine?
Oh no, So, I don't think you can have two incidents like this. Trust is everything. And these guys operate in the world of selling trust.
Oh, exactly. All right, so like you're saying, playing chess, playing marbles, or losing marbles. Our friend Joe Biden. So anyway, a lot happening in the US. Where to stop? Because obviously there's usually some trickle down impact for the rest of us, mere mortals, and the rest of the world. Let's start with his defiance around insisting that he can run when clearly there are cognitive challenges, to put it mildly.
Yeah, so I was, we were discussing this last night with my partner, and she asked me, how this is allowed to happen, and it forced me to really think about the incentives. And if you think about just his family incentives, Hunter Biden has an ongoing criminal case. And his father can pardon him. So you can imagine how that family echo chamber happens, where Hunter's facing jail time. And the one thing that will keep him out of jail is if his father is the president of the United States and can pardon him. Clearly, Joe's wife doesn't want to see her son go to jail, and it's quite nice being the first lady.
Yeah. Okay, I see. We had almost had to put on our tinfoil hats immediately before.
No, I don't think these are conspiracy. I don't. And you can call me out. You're welcome to call me out if you think I'm peddling a conspiracy theory. But I believe that
I think it's an
is
extreme case that we got to first in this.
Well, yeah, David, you're about to become a father, and the reality is that there's not much a parent won't do for their child.
I know, but couldn't
look
he
for
have done a
incentives.
deal with the Democrats? Stand down, but you got to make sure that you pardon Hunter, or he could have pardoned Hunter or something. But anyway, I mean, you are not completely wrong. I get it. There is a strong incentive there to ensure that his family is secure, right?
Yeah, and what I'm demonstrating is one reason why echo chambers are created. When somebody's got a lot of power, the people around them by proxy have a lot of power, and that's where echo chambers and echo chambers exist at almost every level. It certainly exists at a governmental level, it exists at an organizational level, it exists at a household level, at a social level. We all look for echo chambers. And probably the best advice I ever heard on this was, if somebody gives you if somebody insults you and it strikes a chord, look for the truth.
Yeah.
And if somebody praises you and it lifts you up, look for the lie.
Okay. Yeah. This this episode has definitely brought out the worst in the Democratic Party and in politics in general in so many ways. So I'll recount where I think this has all gone wrong. So firstly, you know, when granddad gets too old and he's a little bit senile and he's still driving, you try and take the keys away from him and he doesn't like it, right? So you know what you need to do? You need to tell him that the car was stolen. Oh shit, the car was stolen. You know, I mean, this is like, it's a joke, but it's not, right? Like, I mean,
No,
that's,
it's not.
I'm telling you, it happens daily. And then you sold the car and it was stolen and they don't worry, we'll drive you around and off you go. So to get him to hand over the keys at this stage, when clearly there's, you know, there are times when he's okay and there's times when he's not okay. Like it's his decision making is compromised. So we're asking him to make the big decision that he can't make. So then you think about those that are around him. So let's work out. So him, yes, he should. All his life, he's had a little bit of arrogance. You know, they call him the fucking big deal, Joe Biden and whatnot. Like he's always had a little bit of that going on. So, you know, true to the end, but also diminished capacity to make decisions. Then those directly around him. So you got Dr. Jill Biden, and then you've got obviously the immediate administration. Well, they're all dependent on him for a paycheck. So their incentive runs the way that it runs. Dr. Jill Biden's incentive, I don't know, but like I mean, it's horrific what she's doing. You know, forget the direction of duty as a citizen to her country. What she's doing to her husband is just completely inappropriate, right? So I think, you know,
well, I think you know, yeah, carry on.
So then you go a bit further out and you got the broader Democratic Party and those who have a position of influence. And they're all, I don't know about all, but there is a significant amount who's starting to come out and say, hey, you know, this is a problem and we maybe shouldn't run again. Yeah, it's all bullshit, right? Well, firstly, of course, but secondly, there's nothing new in this. Like they knew this for a long time. What they realized is they made a very bad mistake saying let's have a debate early on in the process, which was the Democratic request. They usually you wouldn't have a debate this early on, and they asked for that probably wrong. They know they can't win any longer, so they're coming out now saying, you know, that he shouldn't run, which of course he shouldn't. But they can't act surprised, like, oh, I think things have changed. Like this is, you know, they. Do you remember when there was a? Do you know that Joe Biden also had some? There was a case where he also had sensitive documents that he hadn't handed over, and so there was a special prosecutor who was appointed and went and obviously conducted his interviews and whatever. And in his findings said, and I wish I had the exact thing, something around the lines of he's definitely transgressed laws and whatever else. However, you know, to go and take him in front of like a special jury or whatever, however that works, said there's going to be no chance of success because he will come across as an old man, you know, with infirmities, and people will be very sympathetic to him. And everyone was shocked and horrified by that statement. How the hell could he say that? He's playing politics. That's exactly what he was. You know, when he goes through the bad times, that's exactly what he is. You know, he's just. So they all knew about this anyway. But the biggest problem with this whole situation is they're talking about should he run, should he not run? The first question should be, can he serve the people of the United States today? You know, like that's his job. It's not about, this is not a power play and some intricate politics and whatever. This is the man running the biggest economy in the world, the biggest influence. Can he serve his people? On some days, I think he probably can. On other days, he most definitely cannot. Is that like, would you let this guy babysit your kids and give them medicine? Would you let them drive your partner around? Would you, you know, would you make him chairman of your company? If the answer is no to even the simplest of things. But the problem is that this has all been seen around. How do we, you know, it's a problem because they can't win any longer. Like, where is the service? Where is these people are in service to the American public. And when you're when you have the opportunity, well, no, when you have the possibility of being such diminished capacity, you know, that should be the first thing that we're thinking about.
You know, I'm not going to take the bait on, you know, because it's such an easy target on, you know, the woke left and, you know, how, you know, Newsom, probably the only other candidate that can possibly stand up is so compromised that, you know, the Trump will take him apart on so many other issues.
He can't run.
But you know, let's go to the first principles of this. And this problem is as old as time. You know, the fable of, you know, the emperor has no clothes. is part of it. And I just look at and when I think of these issues, I try and personalize them. And I value people in my life who tell me uncomfortable truths. And I think that part of being a man, part of being an adult, part of being a leader, is not shying away from surrounding yourself with those people, and we all know who they are in our lives, who will sit us down, and it's not nice. And when we ask for the advice from them, they will give us a very uncomfortable truth. And for me, that's missing in Biden's life. Somebody who will sit him down and say, Joe, it's time. You were a war hero. You gave your whole life to public service. You did a good enough job in your first round. It's time.
Did he go to war? I know his son did. I don't know if he did.
He went to war. Yeah, Joe. He was a POW. He's got a stellar record, public service record.
Okay, I mean, I don't know about yeah. I mean, I know he's been around for a long time, so we can agree on that. But the problem is that's his. I mean, the first person doing that should be his wife, right? And the fact that she's not.
I don't know. Who is his wife? His wife is a teacher. So I don't know. I don't know if she's the right person. I don't.
What do you mean by that? I mean, teachers are some of the most educated people in the world and dedicated their lives to, developing others. Like these are people with high levels of intellect and capability.
Well, I don't know if she, I don't know. So I think that the truth is that I have a, and I'll steal the famous book. I have a tribe of mentors. I don't put anybody on a pedestal in my life. And depending on the subject matter, if it's a deeply personal psychological thing, I have a clinical psychologist who I have a long-standing relationship with, and I'll ring him up. I'll fly to Johannesburg and I'll go see this person. If it's a technology issue, or if it's a business issue, if it's a financial issue, I have different people in my life who I would go and see and seek guidance and seek counsel for different issues. So I don't, I think my point being, his wife, I don't know the role his wife plays in his life. And, and she might not be that person.
Well, she is definitely playing that role because she's the inner circle who is advising on whether he stays or, whether he runs or doesn't.
Then he's chosen badly.
But the point is his diminished capacity. Like now it's almost those around him have taken control, so to speak, because there'll be days that he has completely diminished capacity to make these decisions. Like that's when there is cognitive decline at some stage, that person no longer has the ability to make the right decisions.
Look, it's a fundamental human trait, this need to survive. Like, you and I've had this conversation about flatline and then flatline. I believe in euthanasia. I believe that, life, I have a view on what makes me happy. And when those things can no longer make me happy, I hope I will choose to end my life. But then, at the same time, I'm not ignorant to the fact that I look around me and I look at homeless people. I look at people who, who have a very low standard of life, but somehow, there's something in the human spirit that just wants to fight and wants to continue to live.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. At a cellular level.
Absolutely. And it's, I read some research this last week, and this is going off on a bit of a tangent, but there's a cancer vaccine in final rounds of testing, and the data is quite staggering. The data is like a 50% reduction in infection of cancer and a 60% reduction in spreading in spreading of cancer. So the reality is that you and I, our life expectancy is, is going to be I don't want to put a number on this, but it's going to be significantly higher. If you think about heart disease, which is a lifestyle disease, and you think about cancer, and you remove both of those out of the equation, life expectancy is going to go through the roof.
Yeah, but there's only so many brain cells. That's the problem. You can get the shell to continue, but it's the how do you stop the cognitive decline? That's the key, because that's the one part of the brain that doesn't seem to be well. You have X amount, and that's it, right?
Well, this is the promise of neurotech. This is the merge. So if you can move some of your memories into compute, and augment your brain with
silicon.
With silicon. That is absolutely, and it's no longer sci-fi. A lot of these things we're looking at 10-20 year horizons, and in 20 years, I'll be 70. So I'd like to believe that I would still be in a strong enough mental position to augment my brain with silicon and be quite functional.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Just choose your endpoint monitoring and detection carefully.
Yeah, exactly. A whole bunch of people frozen behind driverless cars. And
John's frozen again. Just to save you all the hate mail and the corrections, I don't think he did serve in the military. I just had a quick look while you were there. His son did and his father did, but I don't think he did.
Okay. So I stand to be corrected.
Yeah. Okay. So going across the aisle, obviously a week ago was it on a Saturday? Yeah. Or Sunday. There was must have been Saturday, and the assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump. It is so crazy, the news cycle we're in at the moment. A week later, that feels like a non-event. Like, oh yeah, we've done that, been there, done that. But it would be a miss not to just touch on that quickly. I mean, firstly, we came within inches of what would have been just a catastrophe. Forget the needless taking of lives and whatever else, which obviously is the first at a fundamental human level, and then at a societal level. Can you imagine what that would have done for that country if that guy had if there was an inch either way on it?
Yeah, and all the conspiracy theories are coming out now. The X is rife with conspiracy theories. So it is it's hard to believe that in this day and age, with the resources the US have, that this was allowed to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know how they haven't run out of people to fire yet, and how the head of the Secret Service has still got their job, because the moment a bullet touched somebody under their, an ex-president under their protection, the moment the bullet touched that person, then immediately you got to change the leadership. You have to, because whatever, even if it was the most elaborate case and this and that, and it was, a state actor who had done some, incredible spycraft to get there, they've still failed. The fact that it was a teenager who seemed to be, I don't know, perhaps not, that he wouldn't be the first introduced into the Army Rangers, I would imagine, from what I've seen. Like, this is how could this have even happened? And off a roof that was in a proximity that was what, 200, 300 yards, that apparently, reports have come out that they knew he was there for 20 minutes. For 20 minutes, they knew that he was on the roof, and that they knew that he had a rangefinder. Like, I don't know. Whatever the conspiracy theories are, I think the reality is probably, unless this is the biggest, most, the biggest failing of a system, it just doesn't add up.
I think it's a failing of the system. Look, I don't, I think that, excuse me, to orchestrate a conspiracy at this level is massively difficult.
So why was he allowed to be on that roof for 20 minutes with a rangefinder? If there was concern, why did they let Trump out onto the stage before they had gone and figured out what was happening there. Like, this is not some local law enforcement. I mean, this is the Secret Service, right?
No, I don't, firstly, we're still in the fog of war with this. So was he there for 20 minutes? Was he not? The first question I would ask would be, was the, do we believe the whole Secret Service was compromised? There were snipers everywhere. If somebody was there, why did a sniper not have eyes on him? So
I mean, when it was time to kill him, it took like a matter of seconds, right?
20 seconds, which means that he fired off quite a few rounds. So, the reality is that, if they'd spotted him 20 minutes earlier, I saw photos of videos of numerous snipers on roofs. One of those snipers would have had eyes on him. And as soon as he swapped a rangefinder for a rifle, he would have been eliminated. So,
but hang on. He's not meant to be on a roof. It's clearly, if you're gonna try and do something, the roof is where you're gonna do it from. You have a rangefinder. He's in a place that he's not meant to be. Like, it's not a wait and see situation then, and especially when your sole job is the protection of a certain individual. You don't like, maybe he's just innocent or whatever. Like, if there was even one of those flags, they should have done something on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the history would seem to back that up, right?
Yeah, look, I think that, I think unlike the Kennedy assassination, there are many smartphones, many cameras, many angles on this, and I'm personally taking a wait and see approach. I try not to go down a conspiracy theory route, because my view is the vast majority of people in something like the Secret Service have dedicated their lives to protecting somebody. And I think that, thinking that they all conspired to allow somebody to be shot is not my default thinking pattern.
Well, I don't know about that. What I do know is that, what makes an organization effective? It's clarity of mission, well-trained, clarity in roles, and a culture that makes decisions when that helps, empowers individuals to make the right decision consistently, right? So even if this was a complete, just everything is good, and just they all got it a bit wrong, I think you almost got to start again, because clearly,
absolutely, there's a systematic failure there.
Did you see that agent trying to remove their gun from their holster?
Oh no, yeah, that DEI. Don't get me going on DEI, because that is, that human being just shouldn't be there. Physically they shouldn't be there. They were clearly ill-trained. They clearly their flight instinct was wrong. That human being just shouldn't be
there. Yeah.
And I actually have empathy for her, because her career is done now. She's not a young human being, and she's trained to be in law enforcement, and she was she was set up for failure.
Well, still need beat cops, so I wouldn't feel too bad. By the way, you were the one who said she. I never said she, just for the record.
I don't. I'm certainly in a world of two genders, and it's quite clear to me which side of that equation she's on.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say DI is that fault here, but I mean, there's something is not right on that. And you could hear them. You could hear people shouting, saying he's got a gun, he's on the roof, for a long time way before the bullets started coming. And if they knew that,
absolutely,
and this, like, that they knew that he was there for 20 minutes. This is not like somebody who heard from something. Like, this is like, official FBI, because I think is it the FBI or who are handling their investigation. Anyway, it's not the Secret Service. This was like, they were releasing this information. So, okay. Anyway, we will see.
Look, I think what's more interesting for me out of this is Trump 2.0. And let me just go on record to say that I'm by no means a Trump supporter. I think.
Why? What happened?
In this term, he's definitely refined himself. You know, if I look at his previous term, how, you know, he would just go out and he would just hatefully belittle people. He would be the bully. He would say the most crass, inappropriate things. And, you know, the mask he's put on now is a very, very different mask to last time around.
Yeah. Yeah. How long is it going to last?
I don't know. I think as humans we are complex things, and I certainly believe that the environment brings out aspects of the person. I think we've all got the Hitler in us, we've all got the Gandhi in us, we've all got different masks that we can wear in different environments, and the optimist in me hopes that the environment is going to rise to the challenge, is probably the best way I can put it.
I would say the chance of that is less than 1%. I'm happy to say 0, actually. Okay. For the following reasons. Number one, we cannot escape ourselves. That's the first point. And he is so inherently flawed as an individual. Because we're not talking about, all of his policies here, because some of his policies are right and some of them are wrong and whatnot. But if we just talk about him as an individual, right? Like, he is so flawed as an individual in that he has this such deep desire and need to be praised and a complete inability to be criticized. Like, he cannot live in that environment, right? So when he is criticized, his response is always, well, we know what it is, right? We know how he reacts, and unfortunately he's fairly good at being that kind of playground bully to an extent. And that's not going to change. He's too old. He's too set in his ways. It's just too his core what he is. So there's a little bit of this, and let's just talk to the first one around being praised. Everyone loves me. I can do a different speech, and I can be the unifier, and people will love me even more. The moment that he gets criticized, the moment that somebody goes after him, he's going to, and I think we even saw it at the closing speech of the RNC. Like, he started that way, but by the end of it, he was going off script and whatnot. Like, I would say this shall be short-lived.
So depending on the bar that maybe to calibrate, maybe I'm a little bit, maybe my bar is a little bit lower, and the reason it's lower is because, where are these leaders? Where are these inspirational leaders who are leading the free world and doing it selflessly and making the right decisions?
Doing it there in business, that's where they are.
Well, exactly. So
selflessly doing it there, I'll tell you.
Yeah, we on message. I shared that clip of the Boeing CEO in front of Congress, having to defend a $35 million pay package. That is just 40% increase from last year.
That is the one they should be looking into, not Elon's. Like, you're taking a business backwards. Yeah. Anyway, okay, but
that's just, if you just look at that individual, the company is in turmoil. There's a very, you're a public company, so your remuneration is going to get scrutinized. To accept a 40% salary increase is just, if anything, he should have said, listen, I'm going to take no salary and I'm going to take some upside in me fixing these problems. That's what a true leader would have done.
Yeah. Exactly. But it's a short-term cash grab, isn't it? Honestly, Dave Cohen, I've never, ever, I don't know that I've known him all that long, but I've definitely not been, known of him, I should say, definitely have been underwhelmed from the start. He was too quick to draw a line under the past problems in a way that was superficial and then get to the heart of what the issue was. There was no meaningful, demonstrable return to engineering that Boeing was at its core for so long and so successful. There's an arrogance to him, which we've seen in the way that he acts. So anyway, he's out the door, no doubt, with a golden parachute. But if the parachute's made by Boeing, I don't know if it's going to work. So just as we come to the top of the hour, you put all of this stuff together. Joe Biden, he's obviously holding on. Lots of pressure for him to not run. Democrats are seeing that they can't win with him. He's saying it's long, things will change. this is the best he's ever going to be. This cognitive decline is going to continue, and when he's having his bad days, it's too bad. It's too bad. So I think the fact that they can't win, I'm not sure if he was ever going to win. They definitely can't win now. What happens? Does he get, what is it, article? What is it? There's some article that allows the sitting president to be removed, or do they, obviously funding's drying up, so that's going to hurt, or do the rest of the Democrats all turn on him and then he plays ball, or does he run? What happens?
I think the challenge, if nobody else is putting up their hand, because, nobody wants to lose. You only have a few shots at running for president before you become, before you become untouchable. So,
yeah.
There's a bunch of politicians sitting there saying, why would I put my hand up only to lose?
Yeah, sure.
So I think that's the first question is, who would be that sacrificial, to use the boxer analogy, who is that sacrificial boxer who's going to stand up and take a few knocks? Yeah.
I'll tell you who it is.
Tell me.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is her. I think that she really doesn't have a bright future in politics, and they're going to put her. But look, either way, the outcome's the same.
Yeah, that's quite right.
Either way, the outcome's the same.
But there are other options. There are other options in this. If you think, well, firstly, the thing is he going? Because I don't think they want him to run, and I think firstly, I'm going to think come November, I don't think he's on the ballot. That's my view, and I think that there will be an unbelievable dereliction of duty if he was, because all of those people should be tried for crimes against America for putting him forward, right? Like, you go back to that service point, forget power and politics and all this fucking bullshit that they're always focused on. Go and look at what the purpose of that office is. And he cannot do that, right? Clearly. And it's risk. And, remember when Trump, they always spoke about Trump and the risk of him having the nuclear codes and whatever. Now we got a guy like this, and why are we not hearing those same things? Anyway, so I don't know how it's going to happen. I suspect he will step aside. I think there will be a turning point and he will step aside.
Look, I think this COVID opportunity is an olive branch. What he could say is that, COVID has hit my health a lot harder than what I anticipated. And, based on because nobody wants to, a mental illness, it still has a stigma attached to it. So nobody wants to bow out because of mental illness.
I don't even know if it's mental illness. I think it's age. I think we're dealing with age here. No, he's going to die of time. That's what's going to happen,
I think he's got Parkinson's. If you look at the symptoms, if you look at, everything else, it could be age. We don't, these things are complex.
Yeah. I mean, my dad has Parkinson's. He had it for a while, and it's certainly one of those diseases that seems to be better and better, treatment for it. But obviously it does have an impact. But anyway, my dad's of a similar age, a couple of years younger, but definitely much, much stronger from a cognitive point of view. Anyway, the point is, if somebody told you, if one of your friends or a colleague at work, or one of your employees, your long-suffering employees came to you and said, my 81 or 82-year-old granddad is going into cognitive decline, you would have said, shit, man, that's really sorry. There wouldn't be surprise. You wouldn't be like, there's a stigma or surprise. You would just be like, that's what happens when people get old, right? And you'd say something along the lines of, 80 years, good run, probably.
Yeah, but I think it's different where your CEO, calls a town hall and says, I can no longer lead the organization. I think it's slightly different for a person in power to relinquish their power based on mental decline.
Yes, but then, and again, not to go and prosecute this whole thing, the point is everyone else can see it. Like, by not acknowledging it, all you're doing is destroying your legacy. You cement your legacy when you say, I cannot be in service to the great citizens of this country.
It's the emperor has no clothes. That story is, at least a few hundred years old. And, and we've lived it, coming from Africa. Mugabe was the revolutionary. He took Zimbabwe into independence. He did Zimbabwe in the 80s, had, quite a strong economy, and then, slowly would not give up power. and really drove that country into the absolute ground.
Yeah. So, question for you. Jamie Dimon joins the ticket, top of the ticket. Works or doesn't work?
I think it'll work. I don't. I don't think Trump needed him to win, but it'll work. But I think some of his views are quite polarizing.
Jamie's.
Yeah.
Do you think so? I mean, I think that he's one of the most respected, least controversial financial leaders. I mean, if you go and dig around, you're always going to find some stuff. But where do you think he would come unstuck?
Is he not pro-life? Is that not one of, maybe I'm misunderstood.
Is he pro-life?
Yeah.
Jamie Dimon. I don't know, but I think he would happily amend his view accordingly.
Okay.
I don't know if he's ever shared that.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. It's probably worth fact checking. What's your view?
Well, Jamie Dimon tells employees, so JP Morgan Chase tells employees that the bank will pay for travel to states that allow abortion.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think
you've got it.
Look,
yeah.
I think the fact that he is so rich and that he's been part of the big JP Morgan Chase, obviously it's an easy soft target, even if it's not a factual target. And if you go and scratch around, there probably is some factual stuff that could hurt him. But he is well respected. He's led that bank extremely well. He came up with the idea around fortress balance sheets. So he's got a sustained. He's long-term greedy, not short-term greedy, which I think is the right type of greedy to be. Yeah, whether the average man is going to kind of get behind it, but then it's there will be the billionaire versus the billionaire, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but something's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if a week from now it's in motion.
Okay. Interesting.
Let's see. Well, I think it's in motion already. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I think it was Zelensky coming to town. I think it was that. Because it was a DRC, and then I think Zelensky was in town, and then maybe after he's left, it's gonna. Let's see.
Big announcement.
Well, I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I may be wrong. Predicting the future, it's almost impossible. But let's see.
Yeah.
All right.
In 3 weeks, we've had quite a lot happen, David.
That's quite right. All right. Let's try and not leave it to be 3 weeks again. All right, Tony. Nice talking to you again.
David.
Let's see how that all plays out. All right. Cheers.
Have a good day.